Good evening, everyone. Today, I'm honored to say a very warm welcome to you all to the second session of the Niagara Region Seat at the Table program. Getting ready to run? We are excited that you are able to join us tonight. Let me highlight a couple of things before we start. We are recording tonight's session so that those who were not able to make it can still hear from our great line of speakers and panelists. Unfortunately, with the webinar setup, you are not able to turn your videos or adjust your microphone. If there's a question you would like to ask in the question periods, you will be able to do so. My name is Nahid Qureshi. I'm the founder and organizer of not-for-profit local organizations, Muslim Senior Circle Niagara, and Services for Humanity. Tonight, I'm assisted by Elizabeth Zimmerman, Executive Director of the YWCA Niagara Region and member of the Niagara Region Women's Advisory Committee, who will be moderating the panel discussion. We are going to launch a couple of polls to start the evening. The first one is for us to understand a bit about who we have around the table tonight. It is a set of 7 demographic questions. For each of them, you can choose prefer not to answer. I will note that due to Zoom capabilities, prefer to self-describe option, you cannot actually self-prescribe. Also, there were limited options allowed, so the last 2 questions are a bit of a combo D. Please complete that poll as I turn it over to Casey Ogoni, the Manager of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Indigenous Relations at Niagara Region to provide the land acknowledgement. Welcome, Casey.
Thank you, Nahid. So as we take a moment today to reflect on the importance of the land on which we gather, our provider and sustainer, we look to understand the history of the land. These lands are situated on treaty land. These lands are steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattawandurunk, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and the Six Nations of the Grand River. The Tuawa Wampum is the first known agreement between the First Nations and Europeans, and is an important symbol of everlasting equality, peace, and friendship. It remains the foundation upon which Canada was built, and we recognize this mutually respectful relationship between nations is essential for reconciliation today. Many people say the foundation of democracy are built on the gatherings of the Haudenosaunee and the practices of collaboration between nations. We hope that by encouraging more diverse voices to be heard and rise up in positions of leadership in Niagara, it can be more reflective of those collaborations many years ago. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The regional municipality of Niagara stands with all Indigenous peoples, past and present, in promoting and encouraging the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. I encourage you all to do more to learn about the history and better understand the current situation of Indigenous peoples. This will help us understand our roles and take responsibility towards reconciliation as treaty people, residents, and caretakers. Today is the National Day of Awareness for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, Girls, and Two-Spirit, also known as Red Dress Day. It's a day to bring attention to the fact that Indigenous women, girls, and to us LGBTQIA+ people experience higher rates of violence and are overrepresented as victims of crime. We want to stand with the survivors, family, and community who have lost loved ones. The session today is part of a project called Canadian Women in Local Leadership. It's funded through the Federation of Canadian Municipalities and Women in Equity and Gender Equality, also known as WAGE. We have partnered with the Greater Niagara Chamber of Commerce, Women in Niagara, City of St. Catharines, YWCA, Future Black Female, Services for Humanity, Muslim Senior Circle, and Niagara Region's Women's Advisory Committee to organize tonight and the future sessions. Thank you for your poll responses. I'm going to end the poll and we'll share the responses here so we can see we're mostly women. One man joining us today, thank you. All English speakers, and we have a bit of a mix of ethnicity, and some representation from the 2S LGBTQ plus community, and a good range of ages and a range of municipalities present as well. So thank you for sharing that. And I'm going to launch one more poll. And just one sec, I'm going to make sure I download those responses first so they don't disappear on me. And I'm going to launch the second poll. And this poll is just 4 short questions to gather a baseline about your level of knowledge, interest, and confidence regarding our topic tonight. At the end of tonight's session, we're hoping that you will have learned more about what it means to be involved in local politics, how you can run, and what are some of those specific questions that you might have about the practicalities of running. We have enabled live transcript. Let me turn that on actually. And there you go. So that is on now. It's pretty good for the closed captioning at the bottom of your screen. If you can't see it, you have to go to the settings at the bottom of the screen where it says live transcript, and then you can adjust what you can or cannot see. After the presentation by Bonnie Nisco-Dunk, there will be time for questions for you. Feel free to post any questions through the Q&A option or through the chat feature at the bottom of your screen. You may have to toggle between the chat and the live transcription features if you're using that. I'll remind you to keep your chat and questions considerate and respectful. And then Elizabeth will introduce our 2 panelists and moderate a discussion with them. Again, taking additional questions from you at the end of those. And then Naheed will close the evening with some information about upcoming sessions. Let's see, I think we are done with this poll now. So I'm going to end that current poll. And we've got a good range of knowledge and understanding and a good level of interest in different positions. So I'm going to introduce to you our first speaker tonight, Bonnie. And Bonnie has worked in municipal government for several decades. Since 2004, she has held the role of deputy or city clerk in multiple municipalities. She moved to Niagara in 2008 with her husband, and since then has worked in Welland and Thorold, and now for the past 11 years in St. Catharines. She has a BA in sociology and a minor in psychology, and is a certified municipal officer. Bonnie has a blended family of 5 children, 6 grandchildren, and she loves to run and cycle. She recently purchased a Peloton and can now run in Paris at dusk or Bangkok as the sun rises, all without smog or humidity. A huge welcome to Bonnie, and we look forward to your presentation.
Thank you, Cassie. Okay, I want to thank you and your team for doing this. I think it's fantastic. It actually gets us excited about elections. You know, clerks that get excited about elections, believe it or not. So my purpose here this evening really is to provide you with a high level overview of the role of a councillor and the mayor and how those roles interact in local municipal organizations. As well, I'll be giving you an overview of the basics to help you make a decision as to whether you would like to run, or perhaps maybe you'll hear this and say, you know, maybe it isn't for me. I've included a lot of information here. I'm assuming you will get a copy of the slide deck. However, don't worry about all the details, because you do need to schedule a full appointment when you make that decision to run in the clerk's office in the municipality in which you choose to run. They'll ensure you have everything you need, and they'll go through a lot of the documents that they're going to give you. The packages are quite extensive. So I didn't ask, but I guess I'm doing the slides. Is that correct, Cassie? Or are you doing them?
Yes, you can do the slides.
Okay, let me try and share my screen here. Here we are. Great. Okay, so running for municipal office 2022. And that will be in October, third Monday in October. So these are basically the roles that I am going to try and go through with you so you have an understanding of the roles. So council represents the public. Interesting, of course you know that, and consider the well-being and interests of the municipality in totality. The head of council or the mayor acts as the chief executive officer. Important to note, it's not the CAO, however, he's the chief executive officer of the municipality, and he provides leadership to our council. Councillors play several roles, including representative, policy making, and stewardship roles in our municipalities. The CAO and staff implement council's decisions and establish administrative practices and procedures. The roles you see up here must absolutely work cohesively as a team to advance the business of the municipality. The role of council, this comes directly out of the Municipal Act, and I will skim through it because there's a lot here. But basically, the role of council is to, as I say, represent the public and consider the well-being and interests of the municipality. And they determine which services the municipality provides. They control what policies and practices and procedures we put into place and ensure accountability and transparency in doing all of the above. And they maintain the financial integrity of the municipality. The role of council, council meets regularly on a set schedule to conduct business. So we pass bylaws. An effective councillor spends much of their time preparing for these meetings, asking questions in advance, attending meetings to make good decisions. Some municipalities also have councillors who participate in standing committees, agencies, boards, and committees. So, and I'll say it again at the end when I tie this together, but there is a lot of time commitment. So it is good to reach out to department heads and talk to administrators within the corporation. The head of council is the mayor. Okay, he's the chief executive officer, presides over the meetings. So he's the chair of the meeting, and he makes sure that we move through the business of the evening efficiently and effectively. He represents us at all official functions. So mayors are there cutting ribbons and doing state of the city, etc. They represent and promote the municipality locally and elsewhere. They participate in activities that enhance economic, social, and environmental well-being of the municipality and its residents. And that also comes right out of the Municipal Act. So this is not something that we put together. The role of staff, we're officers and employees of the municipality. We implement council's decisions. We establish administrative practices and procedures to carry out the decisions. We research and provide advice to council on policies and programs of the municipality, and we carry out many other duties as may be required. The council and staff relationship. Okay, and this is just sort of a guide for you to look at. An elected representative represents the views of many represents the views of many individuals, and it's important to acknowledge that not all of those views and opinions can be represented all at one time. An elected official requires a broad understanding of the issues, and they will make many decisions, opposing interests, and have many opposing interests, and may not be popular with everyone always. One of the things we talk about in these, when we're talking to new councillors, is our code of conduct, okay? Ontario municipalities and councillors, as you know, in councils operate under a legislated accountability and transparency framework. Included within that framework are that municipalities must establish a code of conduct by which all members of council must adhere to. They must ensure that there's there's access for all councillors to an integrity commissioner. So if you have questions about, am I in a conflict? I'm around this table, I'm making decisions. I don't know, do I know someone here? Is this a financial issue? We need to make sure that there's always an integrity commissioner on board that can help you and answer that question. So, and that's where the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act is very important. It's one that you should have a look at if you're considering running. The role of school board trustee, and I don't know how many of you are interested in that role. The Education Act creates 4 different kinds of school boards. There's English public, English separate, French public, and French separate. And candidates are encouraged, before you even think about running, to confirm what municipality they are to register, because it's not quite as simple as it is when you're running for council. The boundaries within which you would run for a school board trustee are slightly different. The role of the board trustees are to establish policy direction, participate in decision-making that benefit the entire school board while representing the interests of the constituents. Trustees are accountable for constituents, the Ministry of Education, and of course, most important, families. I should have reversed the way I put those. Now, to be eligible to be a candidate to run for a municipal office, it's really quite simple, actually. A Canadian citizen, 18 years of age or older. You must be a resident of the municipality or the spouse of such an owner or tenant of land, okay? Not legally prohibited from voting. Basically, that you're not here tonight from your jail cell. And not disqualified by any legislation to hold municipal office. To be a school board trustee, it's pretty much the same. However, you must meet any other qualifications to vote for the school board. So i.e. you must be Roman Catholic or hold French language rights to participate in those 2 boards. Third-party advertisers were new in the 2018 election, so I'm just going to touch upon this. It's folks that come before us, and it was introduced, like I said, in 2018, and it can be an individual, a corporation, or a trade union that is registered in the municipality to promote, support, or oppose a candidate, or a yes or no answer, which we don't have on the ballot, at least in St. Catharines. It is an advertisement in any broadcast, print, electronic, or other medium that has the purpose of promoting, supporting, or opposing a candidate or a yes or no question on the ballot. So when you start seeing flyers and things come out in your mailbox, or you see billboards, those individuals now have to come before us, and they have to file to be third-party advertisers. The nomination process itself, nominations already opened. We opened on May 2nd. Nomination day is what we entitled the last day that you can file papers, which is August 19th. And that day, our city offices are closed much earlier because the clerk, before the end of the day, has to certify all the candidates. So there's a process to have that happen. Candidates are requested now to book appointments with the local municipalities to file a nomination. And this was put into place basically during COVID as a precaution, not to have, we used to have just a buildup of people lined up in a very small space. So as a candidate, you'll need to provide Form 1, which is a nomination paper, which comes with a package when you sign up. A filing fee, so $200 if you're interested in running for mayor of a municipality, or $100 for any of the other offices. These are all in the Municipal Election Act, so municipalities don't determine this on their own. The other thing that you need, which is new since 2018, are 25 signatures of endorsement from eligible electors in the municipality. Identification showing your qualifying address. And of course, we don't post any of the information, but your age as well. At the time of filing, a declaration of qualifications will be completed. For third-party advertisement, registrations are also open now, and the last day to file those is October 21, 2022. And as well, you need to book an appointment. If that's your purpose here this evening, you'll also need to book an appointment. You have to file a Form 7, which again, the municipality will have. At the time of filing, a declaration of qualifications will also be complete. And if a corporation or trade union, you need proof of such that the organization actually has a charter or proof of a document that they hold. And we will look at that and just to certify you as a third-party advertiser. I will say at this point, all this information as well, all the information that will be in a kit is also available on at least in the city of St. Catharines on our website. Campaign finances, there's a lot to this, a lot more than I've given you here, but there's a lot also that you can take from our website. Expenses or contributions to a campaign are strictly prohibited until you file a nomination. Some folks who were out and had websites and things, I was receiving calls from people saying, I think they're already, looking for contributions, but they just had Facebook pages, and that's fine, as long as you're not collecting campaign finances until you actually file your papers. A campaign bank account must be open unless a candidate does not intend to raise money or spend money. And it's pretty hard, I think, to prove that you don't. Contributions over $25 may be by check or money order or by a method that clearly shows where the funds are coming from. The limit on contributions to any one candidate or registered third-party advertisers is $1,200. A contributor who is limited to up to $5,000 to any number of candidates running for the same council or school board. Candidates and third-party advertisers are responsible to inform contributors of contribution limits. So there's, as I said, a lot here, but this is all set by legislation. So when a nomination is filed, a candidate and third party will be provided preliminary estimates of campaign expenses, and final estimates will be issued no later than September 26, 2022. The higher of the two amounts is the spending limit. And that happens because we have a formula that we follow. So if you're running, for example, in a specific ward, we use the number from the 2018 election, the last number that we had on election day, of how many individuals, eligible electors are there. And we use a financial, we add a number to each of those electors, and that's how we get your spending limit. So it changes as of September 26 because we will have the new list of electors and we'll use that number. But again, the highest of the two amounts will be what you're allowed to spend on your campaign. Candidates and third-party advertisers should ensure they receive receipts for contributions are retained and expenses are tracked. How you choose to do this is your decision, but please note that's very, very important. Keep every receipt that you spend on an election. Candidates and third-party advertisers must file their financials before 2 p.m. on Friday, March 31st. And the candidate or third-party advertiser can apply to the courts for an extension if they feel they cannot meet this deadline. I've had in my career very few people that can't meet that deadline, but there it is. Any surplus must be paid to the city clerk to be held in trust in the event of a compliance audit. Okay. Additional resources regarding elections are your Municipal Elections Act, the Municipal Act in and of itself, Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, Councillor's Guide that's produced by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, plus there's the Municipal Councillor's Guide that each municipality has. And niagaravotes.ca, the website, will have interesting information for you as well. Finally, I guess, and this was just something I put together at the end of the day today, thinking about, I don't know who the audience really is, but important to note, and I've heard this from many young women that have jumped on board and have joined us at the council table. I know they love it. I feel their passion and they're very, very engaged. And when you are that kind of person, there's a huge time commitment and you should be aware of it. Think about what is your reason for running? To move forward a special project or to use municipal government as a stepping stone to another level of government. Really consider that, because most especially in municipal government, many people get in and they want to change, daycare. Well, we don't do daycare at the municipalities. They want to talk about the issues that we do not have, we don't discuss, or that's not what we do around that table. So it would be clear to understand what it is that the municipality is doing. What are the big projects that are ongoing that you would be involved in the decision-making process? Think about the commitment in terms of your personal life and the public scrutiny. I found since 2018, the public scrutiny on Twitter, Facebook, all these social media pages can be very harsh and very hard to take. So you just need to think about, what kind of person am I? Can I deal with this? Am I able to ignore this? Am I going to jump in? I also say to folks, it is a job, although it says it's part-time. Many counselors will tell you about the hours and how much longer they are than actually part-time hours. And finally, I want you to think about the rewards, because there is a lot of rewards. And although sometimes it might feel thankless, there are many rewards when you're able to do something really special or wonderful. Watch a playground come in that you've helped to put in place. So that's all I wanted to say tonight. As I said, the slides are yours. If Cassie chooses to share those as well, my information, she can share as much how to reach me if you have questions beyond this evening. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Bonnie. This was so informative. In fact, you kind of answered the questions that I had. I think just maybe if you wouldn't mind saying one more time, sort of some of those really important dates that we need to think about if we're considering running.
Okay, I will try and go back. I guess the most important dates is when we register, right? And nomination date. So May 2nd is nomination day, and it opened up already. Is when we open nominations. Nomination day is when we end, which is August 19th, key date. And of course, the third Monday in October is election day.
Thank you. This is really important. One of the other things that came to my mind is in terms of the dates and the differences between the third-party advertiser. Can you explain that just a little bit more?
I will try my best. Every time I do this, I'm a little bit, it is a bit confusing, but if you're an individual, and we've had individuals sign up to be a third-party advertiser, that means you're a candidate whose nomination has been filed under Section 33 of the MEA. So as an individual, you can sign. If, let's say, you are a person who belongs to a specific group and you want to promote a candidate or a policy or something that this candidate is promoting, or you want to say, I don't like these candidates because I know these candidates are against my particular pet project, then you have to file if you're going to be delivering flyers or putting information in newspapers. So you must come up and do that. Corporation, so you're a federal political party registered under the Canada Elections Act, constituency, association, or registered candidate at a federal election endorsed by that party, or a trade union, a provincial political party, constituency or association, a registered candidate registered under the Election Finance Act. Okay. And or a crown in the right of Canada or Ontario, a municipality or local board, or any group or association that is not a corporation. So it could be coalitions, various coalitions. I'm trying to think, in St. Catharines, there's a few coalitions. There's the Coalition for a Better Niagara. They would fall into these categories, any group or association.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. This is really helpful. I have a question from the audience, and certainly if there's anybody who's got questions, if you want to type them into the question and answer, we can make sure that they get asked. So the question here is from Linda, and she says, "Hi, Bonnie. Thank you for a very informative presentation. Can you please expand on the role of mayor and also your role as clerk during meetings? We've seen a commenting bias when introducing the next item on the agenda. That's very new to me to see after 20 years of watching City Council. Sometimes the mayor goes to you to rule on things during a meeting. How does that all happen? What's the line on these things? What is his to rule on and yours?" That's a
okay. That's a loaded question, Linda.
Yeah.
And thank you, Linda. So I think I went through what the mayor's role is. I think you asked that. Let me just I'm just trying to break the question down. When it comes to setting agendas, I think you're talking about watching council meetings and biases about order of things. So I feel very, very fortunate in the city of St. Catharines because I work with a very collaborative group of individuals on council, the clerk, or the mayor and the deputy mayor, the CAO. We work many hours organizing agendas and material. In terms of how things land on a Monday night and when the mayor will refer to the clerk is oftentimes for a ruling on whether something is out of order, whether something that's put on the floor needs to be a reconsideration motion. I don't want to go too deep into the clerk's specific procedural roles, but in terms of setting agendas, the clerk sets the agenda in municipalities, not the mayor. What the mayor does, though, is works very closely with our senior leadership team, and we all put the agendas together at least a month or two in advance. So we're always looking at what's coming, what's going to be big public issues, how do we set those onto an agenda that's light. But then if we have a light agenda, that's good, but then we might move a public meeting there because there's public meetings that are absolutely under the Planning Act, bring in, as you know, hot issues, bring in a lot of speakers. Linda, have I answered some of that question, or is there something I've missed there, Elizabeth? If you can help me.
I think you've done a great job. Yes, so she's saying we have always thought, so she's following up with, I'm asking when things are stated between being introduced by the mayor during the city council session, we have always thought that mayors are neutral.
Mayors are neutral. I mean, the mayor in the city of St. Catharines does not, and I think this is a misconception. It's funny that Linda asked this tonight because I've been asked this a few times this week. But the mayor in St. Catharines, it doesn't vote just to break a tie. He has to vote for every report. And if you've watched council meetings, you know we do a roll call for transparency for every report. We don't just do the only things that we do a hand vote for, so the public can always see which councillor is voting for what. The only thing we do a hand vote for is for our minutes, our procedural, administrative procedural stuff, but not for any important reports.
Thank you, Bonnie. And one last question before we let you go is, can you speak a little bit more about the difference between the mayor's role as CEO and the CAO?
Yes, so the CAO is the Chief Administrative Officer. So he really is the only individual that reports to the CEO, which is the mayor, the Chief Executive Officer. They work hand in hand for very many reasons. Obviously, that relationship has to be strong and a good one. The difference really is the CEO doesn't oversee the day-to-day functions of the municipality. It's the CAO, but the CAO reports up to the CEO, which is the Chief Executive Officer, about what's going on in the municipality. But like I say, the only person that actually reports to the mayor and council is the CAO. Is that clear? Does that sort of answer it?
I think so, yes. Thank you so much, Bonnie. And I want to just take the opportunity to thank you so much for your time and for this really fulsome presentation. You answered a lot of good basic questions, as well as gave some really good, deep information. So I know this will be of great value, and thank you for sharing your slides. I'm sure Cassie will be able to get them to the participants. So thank you again, Bonnie, for your time.
Thank you for having me. It was my pleasure. All the best. Bye now.
Bye-bye. All right, so thank you again to Bonnie. And it's now my pleasure to introduce our panelists. Barbara Butters was born in Collingwood, Ontario, raised in Port Colborne. She is married with two children, 2 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandchild. How exciting. And she was first elected to Port Colborne Council in 1997. And has had the privilege of serving her community ever since. In 2018, she ran for the regional rep and is now a regional councillor. Barb describes her background as pretty simple: blue collar, trade unionist, always involved in the community, youth, sports, guiding, and Boy Scouts. And Barb is an artist, a quilt builder, avid gardener, and generally a happy camper. She is very pleased to participate in encouraging more participation in municipal politics. She considers herself a representative people, not a politician. Thank you and welcome, Barb. It's wonderful to have you here. The other panelist that we have today is Donna Kridland. She is currently serving her first term as a councillor in the township of Wainfleet. Donna brings nearly 30 years of private business experience as a frontline manager in the banking industry to her public sector role. In addition to her strategic banking perspective, Donna rounds out her skills with small business success as an owner and partner, building a fly and fishing lodge business in remote Northern Ontario. That sounds like a lot of fun. Donna continues to be active in her community, serving with the Wainfleet Historical Society and the Calendar Committee and Canvasser for Heart and Stroke. Donna also recently served on the Wainfleet Committee of Adjustment. And welcome to you as well, Donna.
Thank you.
So just the Seat at the Table program, as was mentioned earlier, is a Niagara Region initiative that aims to bring attention to the low representation of women, and especially underrepresented women or women of color in municipal governance. The most basic function of a municipality is to serve its citizens. However, the quality of that service is at stake if the policies and programming do not reflect the citizens that it serves. Each of you have been successfully elected as a town councillor, regional councillor. Today we're here to learn about your experiences and hopefully inspire a few others to get involved. So I have the pleasure of being the person to ask you questions, and I will look forward to the audience also sending some questions as we move through this. So the first question I'm going to ask tonight is, what is it like to be a politician? You both have very different roles in that you're representing, Donna, you represent, in your town, and Barbara, you are, although you're a regional councillor for Port Colborne, it really is a regional perspective that you need to be thinking about as well. So what is it like? And can you describe your time commitment? Bonnie talked about the level of time that it takes to be an effective councillor, what the remuneration is, and how or when you need to interact with municipal staff. I will ask, maybe Donna, would you like to begin?
Thank you very much. And again, thanks for having this showcase, this panel tonight. First of all, I'm going to start by saying I love it. So as a first termer, I'm 3.5 years in, and it's kind of hard to describe the job, because what you bring is yourself. So I like finding solutions. I like working with people collaboratively. I like to make things better and analyze things. And I've been able to use all of my skills more or less at the table. And that's probably true of anybody in the room and anybody on the call tonight. So I think it's really just looking at what you want to bring and use your strengths. So I'm finding it's quite a fit, but I also like public service. And I guess in terms of a takeaway, understanding that this is public service, it's not a business. So where I was able to, leverage, let's say, having a business background, 15 years of that was in customer service. So it's not identical, but it's really important that this isn't a profit center, it's a service center. So I think coming to it and really understanding that can be helpful in what you might get out of it. It's challenges all the time in a good way. It's very heavy at times. So for all of us that care deeply about where we are serving, there's some decisions that you will lose sleep over, and it'll keep you up at night. So maybe I'll just sort of pause there. In terms of remuneration, I think Bonnie's done a really great job with her presentation. So, don't do it for the money. The money is certainly enough to help any family and support your efforts, but there's way more to it. There's way more rewards. And the idea for time, again, if you've been following your council, you can see what the live time is. But like Bonnie said, it's a lot of prep work. So as a newbie, my preparation time was very, very significant at the end, because that's something that I wanted to be as prepared as I could. I would suggest somebody take a cold agenda, the next one, don't go backwards, and prepare for it. And then time how much it took for you to understand the content so that you were comfortable. Again, your style will come through if you like that kind of work. It'll be very easy and very time efficient. If it's something that you like to talk it over with people first, it'll complicate it and stretch out the timeline. We've got lots more questions, so I hope I've answered a little bit of that. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Donna. Barb, yes.
Thanks, Elizabeth. So what it's like for me is probably different now than it was in '97 when I first ran and got elected. In '97, I remember the CAO who brought us all in, all of us newbies in, newly elected, and it was more than half the council was newly elected that particular year. He informed us that we were in for a steep learning curve. And he was not kidding. It was a steep learning curve. That was a very long time ago. And as the time rolled along, it got easier because obviously, for myself anyway, you learn as you go. And there was lots to learn. And there still is lots to learn. So then when I made the transition and ran for the region in 2018, back to a steep learning curve, because it was very different than the town municipal government. Lots of similarities, but lots of things were different. So steep learning curve, and that was okay because I like to learn. What it's like on a daily basis, my husband will tell you that I can't get through the grocery store without being stopped, you know, a time or two or 14. And I just have a notebook in my purse and a pen and jot down stuff and get a phone number and, you know, share my number with them. And he says, you don't think you're going to go grocery shopping with her and be out in like, you know, 20 minutes, because it's not happening. That pretty much goes along if we go out for dinner, if we whatever. That's just life, and that's okay, because I've met like the very best people on this planet exactly that way and have no regrets. I think it's important to find the fun in things. I figured back in my probably late 30s, if I can't find the fun in it, I don't want to do it, or I don't want to do it for long. That's just kind of like my own motto of life. And I think it really is about the people that I've met along the way. And that includes like just absolutely amazing staff at the City of Port Colborne. The same at the region. We have such good staff there. They have helped me learn stuff that I need to learn and quick. And that's definitely a bonus. So if you really like people, you can do this, but you got to like people. If you're not a people person, I would say probably not going to be your cup of tea. I think that Donna's comment about, you know, the odd sleepless night here and there. Oh yeah. There have been times where I had to really struggle with certain decisions and wondered after, like, did I do the right thing? And it's only time that will tell whether you did the right thing or not. I follow my own gut instincts and my own heart. And I know that I need to be able to look in the mirror at the end of the day and be okay with who's looking back at me. So my conscience is clear. And in that way, it helps me make those tough decisions, because that's how I'm going to base it on facts, and I'm going to base it on data, and I'm going to base it on my gut. That's my best ways in terms of decision making. The money part of it, if you're thinking about going into it for the money, I would say probably not a really good move. The money's handy for sure, and you make more at the region than you do on a municipal council, so that's kind of nice. And if you don't have benefits, you do get benefits, you know, municipally or at the region. So that is a kind of a nice thing. And as far as the time frame goes, some weeks are sometimes it'll be in my view like kind of quiet, you know, there's not a whole lot of stuff going on and not a lot of phone calls. And then all of a sudden there'll be like the floodgates opened and everybody and their third cousin is calling, and they're all about different things. It isn't about the same thing, which is kind of crazy, but it's also pretty awesome because I never have to worry about getting bored. And I'm one of those people who's I like to be able to come up with solutions, and I like to be able to solve problems if I can. But I also acknowledge I do not have a magic wand, and I make it clear to people that I don't have a magic wand. So if they're looking for, you know, something that there's just no way I can provide, I have to tell them the truth of it and say, I don't have that magic wand. I'm sorry, I cannot do that. This is what I can do, but that's what I can't do. And I find that most people really just want to be heard. They want to know that somebody has listened. And even when you give them an answer that they would maybe not like the answer, they at least appreciate the fact that you've told them the truth and you've heard what they've had to say. So with that, I'll sling it back to Elizabeth.
Great answers. Thank you so much to both of you for that and your different perspectives. I did get a question in from the chat, and you know, there are times when I'm sure you're making very difficult decisions. And how, you know, do you have support from each other as colleagues, or how do you manage that so that you can sleep at night? Is there special ways that you're managing it? Barb, would you like to answer that question first?
The hardest ones are when we deal with in-camera items, because you cannot, come home and, bellyache to your husband about a decision. And in open council, I can come home and bellyache to him, but an in-camera item, I can't say anything to anybody other than to talk with people that were allowed to be in that meeting. So really, like, the support of colleagues and fellow councillors is absolutely critical. It's good to have, you got to find the ones that you kind of connect with and click with. But when you do have that, it makes a world of difference in terms of dealing with the some of the stress and pressures. That's how I find it anyway. Thanks.
Thank you, Barb. Donna, what would you respond to that?
I would probably just agree with Barb on that. Certainly the in-camera is incredibly stressful. I mean, again, my perspective is just as a first term. So having any kind of support system will really help. You can call it a trusted advisor. Again, depending on the subject matter, it's easy to have a comfortable conversation around some of the subject matter. Sometimes it's your residents that are your supporters that will call on certain subject matters that, that I don't have expertise on. So I think, when I ran, I knocked on doors. I didn't have a community. I'm a not from here girl. So I've got a fairly different story, to unfold. But I put things in place that I knew I could reach out. So I just had a circle that I knew that I could reach out for this kind of subject to those people. And they were happy to reach out to me for things that they wanted to know about that was happening in council. So it's hard when a decision is pending. So as a councillor, I tried to be as open as I could. So that's the job. So it isn't until you're in the council chambers, for me, that it all really comes together. You might go with, all your data, all your analysis, and then still either the delegation comes forward and presents new information. So there's a lot of things to manage, but that's what you learn, kind of like Barb said, it's a really steep learning curve. And then you find out if you're good with it. And like a lot of jobs, yes, there's stress, and however you support your own stress is probably what you're going to bring to the table. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Donna. That's both wonderful answers. So, actually, Donna, you spoke a little bit about campaigning, and what would both of you talk in terms of your campaign process? What would be some tips or things that you say you need to know about campaigning? And there's also the difference, of course, as a regional councillor, you're campaigning differently than you are within a municipality. So yeah, I'm interested to know what that experience was like, and what advice you could give to someone who's considering running. Barb, do you want to start with that one?
Sure. So when I ran municipally, I represented we have a ward system. So I represented Ward 4, which is a rural part of Port Colborne, and within that ward, there's 3 hamlets. So part of campaigning would be using your time really wisely. So obviously within those 3 hamlets, that's where like the biggest number of people, voters are, right? So you want to make, so I, would always make sure that I had like a system, right? I had all my roads marked off on a map. And as I did them, I would highlight them, and you had to be like strategic with time, actually. I made sure that when I ran municipally that I got to, I can honestly say I managed to get to every door in Ward 4. I also carried dog cookies in my pocket, because making friends with dogs is a good thing, right? Or it can buy you time if the dog does not want to be your friend. It'll buy you time to get back and not get bit. So carry dog cookies. That's my other tip. And I would say, in terms of don't extend yourself in a financial way that you cannot afford. I ran on shoestring budgets every single time because I refused to spend more than I knew that I just was not going to do that. I just wasn't going to do it. So I found ways to keep my costs really down. And there was other people that, fancy, glossy brochures and yada, yada, yada. I never did that. For those who want to do it, God bless you if you got the cash. I didn't really see it as something that I needed to do or wanted to do. I kept it simple. So with that, it's back to you, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Barb. That's wise words. Thank you. Donna, I saw you nodding your head a few times.
Thank you. I can't believe we both have the dog story on our list, first of all. So I totally get that. Mine was dogs were great. Expect them. I only had one close call. Nothing happened, but expect a story to be there for the dog. So I didn't have the cookies, but I had everything ready so I could run. So yes, there will be some stories. And again, when you're rural or wherever it is, actually, it's got nothing to do with rural, but it's a buddy system. So I wasn't, as a female, going anywhere alone. I was a team of 1.5. When I was out public and doing the doors, I always had somebody with me. On the other hand, in the opposite chair, I was the glossy girl. I was the color coordinated girl. I did all those things because I love it. So I made sure my message was really clean. I had a little, one of those little rack cards, right? So I also I'm at large. So I had to cover all of Wainfleet, which geographically is, somewhat large, but like Barb, I had maps, I had numbers, I had done all the homework to make it as efficient as possible. And I had to knock on about 2,400 doors. And like Barb, I did them all. So I had talked to previous politicians. I went into the office that Bonnie recommended as my first time. I talked to the finance guy. I talked to the operations guy. I talked to the planner. I talked to the CAO. Quite a bit before, just saying I'm thinking of running, and just to get the high notes that were pressures, in addition to following meetings. So there's a whole bunch on the get ready for campaign. I went to Canada 411, downloaded all the phone numbers I could get for Wainfleet because I knew they were landlines. I love making cold calls. So I was up against, I'm a not from here girl, not local to Wainfleet, but I was able to get the second highest vote score of all 5 of us running, second only to be topped by an incumbent. We only had one win, was all 4 of us being new, who has road signs named after him. So when the results started coming in, very early, I could see that I was going to have a seat. So I sort of have a long list here. And, I went to workshops like this to be motivated, to hear Barb's stories, to hear Bonnie's information, and to make lists. And there was a lot of great people that had won elections that I took the notes from. It's a numbers game. So again, being organized or having somebody on your team that's organized might be all you need. I don't know what else. I'm sure I've got a few other things here on the list, but it was fun. So, it'll fuel you. You'll get the stories. All those stories will ground you into your first term, even about what's happening in your municipality. So I'll leave it at that, and we can cycle back if there's interest. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got a few audience questions here I'm going to ask. And so this is an interesting question. Do you see any problems with allowing councillors to represent their communities for a non-defined period of time versus ensuring turnover through term limits, for example? That's something I'm not sure that has been considered. Do you have any thoughts on that? Donna, maybe we'll start with you.
Well, first of all, it's a great question. I think it kind of demonstrates the engagement level that we have on the panel on the evening. That's a really deep question. So I think what the person is maybe talking about is governance in general. So it wouldn't be unreasonable for someone wanting to run on opening up the governance debate. You may declare early that you have a leaning one way or the other, but really, you want to wait till the staff work's been done. So you may, like one way for a reason, and you might like the other way for a reason. So there'll be pros and cons to that kind of a review. But you know, we can open up lots of governance issues in Niagara and become way better. I'll do the plug for Dave Meslin's book. So yeah, there's a lot of governance things that could be tried in Niagara to see if they're better. Maybe that'll help.
Thanks, Donna. Barb, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, could you just repeat the question? I didn't.
Yeah, sure.
My ears are still plugged from COVID. So
oh, goodness.
Not every word sometimes.
Not a problem. The question is, do you see any problems with allowing councillors to represent their communities for a non-defined period of time versus ensuring turnover through term limits, for example? So okay. It's, I guess, basically you could only run for so many times or something to that effect.
Yeah, I don't, for myself, the way I've always just looked at it, you know, whether it was a ward or whatever, they have a chance, you know, every election cycle to pick whoever it is that they want. And in my particular case, I only had one acclamation in all the times that I ran. So there was always competition for the 2 seats in my ward, always. So to me, you know, that's your time to choose. But I don't have anything particularly against term limits either. You know, I would want to see how they kind of work in other places. I think if that was, and really it's the will of people anyway. If there was like this overabundance of people that came to me and said, oh my God, you know, we need to do this. And there was a great groundswell to support it. I mean, we're here to represent people, right? Yeah. But I haven't heard that as like, say, an issue where I live. But not to say it couldn't be an issue somewhere else.
Thank you. Yeah, it's an interesting thought. One of the other questions that's coming up here is, how do you set clear boundaries with aggressive people, particularly if they have a financial agenda? It's a tough one. Barb, I see you reacting the most here. I'll let you start.
May or may not be a good idea. I really don't have a lot of patience with self-serving individuals, and I have to hear people out, right? And I do try to keep an open mind in terms of like what's really at play, and that's when my gut instinct often kicks in here. And if I figure that it really is like a self-serving kind of interest, I don't want them doing me any favors, because I don't want to owe them anything either. That's like really important to me. And I think it should be important to anybody that in elected office not to be beholden to some of those types. But and what do I do personally about it? I try to avoid them like the plague if I can, to be honest with you. Like, and if I actually have, you know, if I have to hear them out, I will. But I figure I'm pretty small potatoes in the big scheme of life. So they're much more apt to go to the mayors than they are to just a regional councillor or a councillor. Not unheard of, but they're more apt to go to up higher up the food chain anyway. So
thank you for that perspective, Barb. How about for you, Donna?
I think as a new person, I don't think that's something that I've experienced yet. So it's not, you know, it's a small town. So maybe these are the players that are in, you know, in larger opportunities. You know, we are in a position of power, and whether we like it or not, you know, like Barb mentioned, you have to have your scruples, and you have to be knowing you're following the rules. And if you're not following the rules, there's serious consequences. So you know, there's lots of guardrails, as Bonnie pointed out, and I don't think many politicians attract it. I think it's probably more the exception. That would be my comment.
Thank you for that. So the other question we have here is, and this is a good one too, particularly to think about for those who are considering running, is how important is it to have a good background on policy, legislation, and governance? Are there resources out there that would give you kind of a crash course on important knowledge, basic knowledge, things that you would want? So Barb, I'm going to look at you for this one to start.
Well, when I first started out, I didn't know anything. I had, kind of like a fundamental understanding on how council worked and when they met, and certainly I knew my city, right? But as far as like all the other intricacies of the planning department and this and that and the other thing, there was all kinds of stuff I had to learn. The region, had a fairly good understanding of how things were connected, but I still had a lot to learn. So no matter what you think you soon find out what you don't know, which for me anyway, it's a pretty good list. And that's just the truth of it. I don't pretend to know a bunch of stuff I don't. That's for sure. So to anybody that's thinking about running, don't worry so much about what you think you know or what you're afraid you don't know. At one point in time, I really wondered if I was smart enough to do a certain thing. And I jumped in anyway. And I found out I'm smart enough. And if I'm smart enough, the rest of the people in this Zoom meeting are certainly smart enough too. So don't let that, don't let your own fears on that hold you back, because it could have held me back. Just thinking, like, when I looked out at the different people that I knew that sat at the region, and I thought, oh my God, they all seem to be so clever, right? We're all just people. We all have strengths. We all have weaknesses. We all have something good to bring to the table. That's really like the bottom line here. So I don't know if that answers the question or not, but don't be afraid to admit you don't know something, because there is all kinds of resources. There's all kinds of staff. If you get elected, the staff are going to help you and really be a huge guiding piece to this. So that's what I have for an answer.
Thank you, Barb. Donna, what's your perspective?
Thank you. I'm just going to carry off where Barb left off, because really when she zoned in on staff, that is vital. So I didn't get to touch on it, but Bonnie certainly touched on it, and I know Barb did, about how important it is to have a healthy, respectful relationship with staff. Staff in Wainfleet are awesome. So again, people running for government, I hope you love government. Like, I hope you understand government enough to know that it can work. So, that's something you want to bring to the table as well going forward. So if you've got a good relationship with senior staff particularly, and we talked about, maybe who do you talk to in Wainfleet, I try to use the protocol of as much as possible going to the CAO. And then there are senior staff that I will go for smaller things, but the CAO has got such deep knowledge and understands. That's what his job is, to keep us successful. So in terms of the policies, you'll get a really deep dive into the policies you'll need to know in an orientation package. Staff have been doing these orientations for all of us newbies forever. So they'll look in the room. Wainfleet had 4 out of 5 new people, and the one before that was just a first term. It was only their second term. So huge learning curve. I think in that respect, we were a little bit luckier to have kind of an even term to learn it all sort of together. Something you could look at or see if you're interested in is maybe a little bit about Robert's rules. So, that gets taken up. I see Barb laughing. It is laughable, but unfortunately when you need it, you need it. So it's something you never need till you need it. But that just really requires you watching a really good regional council meeting. If you want to learn Robert's rules, watch the one on when it was like going from Plan plan B to plan C, right? Right, Barb? So that will come, but it is kind of nice to get the language and just get a little bit of confidence. Again, I'll go back to just practicing one council meeting. So what I used to do is I was watching subject matter, and then I realized, well, I was thinking about becoming a councillor. Well, all that subject matter is going to be obsolete when or if I get elected. So I immediately started switching to watching the operation of the council meeting. And it was a game changer just to watch, to see what was happening when. So the policies, I agree with Barb. I mean, I would not worry, but it will come. Maybe bylaws is something to sort of get familiar with. That's another area that, again, you want to be understanding what the proper protocols in your municipalities are for handling those kinds of bylaw inquiries. That tends to be something that, again, you want to kind of smooth out early in your term. Hopefully that helps.
That's great. Thank you. Such good words of wisdom from both of you. This whole, series, the seat at the table, is around, engaging women to think about running for municipal election this coming year. And I've got a question here. Do you have any suggestions or thoughts at what kind of additional supports municipalities could put in place to support women running for municipal or regional council positions, or for the mayors? What would be maybe some suggestions? And maybe I'll expand the question a little bit. What are some of the experiences that you had that you would say, I wish I'd known this a little bit more, or something like that? So Donna, I'll start with you this time.
Again, another great question. Again, the region's kind of doing that work, because I think they struck the committee. I don't know the proper name, but I think the panel is this event is hosted by the part of the committee, the women's committee. So apologize for not knowing the proper. So I think, finding your own path. I mean, if you're here today, tonight, or this week deciding you're going to run, great. I mean, don't not run by anything. In other words, if you can run and not get elected and be completely successful, in my humble opinion. So I wouldn't say running and not winning is a waste at all. So, because that's a woman at the door. So if you can get through practicing running and be a woman at the door and not win, and accept what you're going to learn out of that, it will be invaluable. I don't say that, I don't say that minimal. I'm not minimizing the work that is there and the reward. But so find a path that works for you. I have not had really anything other than my own personal fears. Nothing's transpired, right? So, I mean, as women in any community, I don't know, we have fears. So you just have to have 5 guys walk in a room and your heart starts racing. So does that still happen? Yes. Is it justified? Not always, right? So I have a very, very great group of people that I'm around in Waynflete. So if we could do something more, it would be having committees where we, strategically think about reaching out in the community and making sure there's that representation. So again, we have 2 out of 5 that are women on council. So it's and it's been that way for quite a few years. So, that's been positive already in Waynflete. And I think I'm probably the beneficiary of a lot of work that's already happened before me.
Thank you, Donna. Barb, what are your thoughts?
Well, to me, for additional supports for women, I think about younger women whose children are kind of still on the small side. When I first started out, the idea of like paying for childcare was, they looked at you like you had, 2 horns and a tail. So now that's changed. It's a much more available thing now if you get elected. Now running, that's a little bit different. You really are on your own if you have young kids to manage that, right? Not an easy thing to do, I have no doubt. I think having like these kinds of forums is a supportive piece. The fact that we're doing this is, kind of adds to that avenue. So is that kind of what your question is about?
Yeah,
those are a couple of things that come to my mind. I think my biggest concern is for younger women who have younger children and their worries about how they're going to balance, you know, the work and council work or just running in itself, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I think I'd like to hear from younger women in terms of like, what do they need? Like, I don't, you know, like I'm not young like them anymore. I'm like an older lady. I'm an old broad.
Donna, I saw you raise your hand. Do you?
No, I'm old too. And so making any space and any supports we can do for obviously opening the support level. It just made me think of, you know, often around the table, you know, they talk about even increasing the salaries of the counselors. And it's a very, you know, difficult conversation, but the ones that lose the most out of that will always be women. Right. So the men at the table voting down or voting or discussing that small incremental amount, which if you say it's a percentage, it's a ridiculous number. But if you say the dollars, you know, that's going to buy more groceries. That kind of thing should just be rolling, you know, and that's going to, it's not a lot, but when you say no for 4 years, now you're 4 years behind. So again, it's a small thing. You know, our council doesn't move that forward. So that's something that we could do better. And I'm not sure what other councils do on there, but it's probably dismissed quite easily. And again, the people that suffer the most are going to be the people that we want at the table.
Thank you. All right, we're just about at that point. So I'm going to just pose one last thing. What praise or I'm just trying to think of the words, what bit of wisdom would you want to make sure you can pass along to anybody considering running? You know, maybe your best learning or, you know, what the experience has meant to you. Just a quick, tell me what this has meant for you or what you'd love to pass along. Donna, do you want to start?
Thank you. It's hard to boil it down, but I'll just speak personally. I had phenomenal support from my significant others that are close to me, and I could not have done it, even though maybe financially I could have, time-wise I could have, but I could not have done that run or the term without that support. So I check in on that all the time. It's a privilege to be in the seat, but I believe there's a cost to a family for that service. And I'd want to my advice would be to make sure that is rock solid. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. And Barb, final comment.
I would say surround yourself with people that you really trust. And if you can do that, you'll be so much further ahead of the game. Family support was critical and has been and continues to be for me as well. Same as Donna, my husband is like my biggest cheerleader. My kids and you know, my family. It's as much as I know it's a pain in the neck for them sometimes because we have to like juggle, you know, certain things around mom's meetings and that, but you know what, they're totally gracious about it, and they're they don't give me a bad time, and they really could, especially after all this amount of time. So yeah, if you're going to do it, it really is a huge thing to have the people in your life behind you 100%. It's made all the difference in the world for me, for sure. So thanks to my family.
Thank you to both of you so much. This has been such an interesting conversation, and I certainly appreciate all that you've shared with us today. And I'm going to now turn the meeting over to Naheed to close. So thank you again, and thank you for personally for the work that you do. It is truly a service that is sometimes not recognized in our community, and so I thank you for what you do.
Oh, Naheed, you're on mute.
Thank you, Elizabeth. At the closure of this session, I must say, wow, such a great conversation. It's been an honor to be among such great individuals. I know your contribution will reflect the quality of investment to encourage towards more women leadership in the political era. Many thanks to all our speakers for their valuable contribution and sharing their insight. Our moderator and everyone who joined us and participated tonight to make this session fruitful. We have launched a follow-up poll. You will see questions are the same as at the start. We will also be sending out a short evaluation of this session, as well as information with the link for the next session. The survey will also ask if you are interested in participating in a short mentorship program, where we will pair up women and gender diverse individuals who are thinking of running with an experienced female counselor and provide some valuable opportunities to ask specific questions before deciding to run. For those who are interested in having next 2 sessions, about 1 to 2 hours each, with a current counselor, please include your name and email address in the chat box or complete the survey when it is sent out to you. Just a friendly reminder, the next session will be held on Wednesday, June 1st at 6 p.m. Registration is open now via Eventbrite. This session will focus on the difference between regional and local level politics, what different roles exist, how they are different and how they work together, and also what differences are there in running for those different positions. A session after this will be a final session for this series. Will be on Wednesday, June 29th at 6 p.m. This final session will focus on addressing potential scrutiny, bias, or discrimination that you may face while campaigning or in office. And how can you prepare for it and how can you respond? Just to share with you everyone, I wear a red dress today. It's critical to support missing and murdered Indigenous women, children, and Two-Spirit, to keep the memories of those we lost alive, survivors, and their families. So that brings us to the end of this session. Thank you all again, and wishing good luck to those thinking of running. And we hope you all have a wonderful night. Thank you.